Hey, so the newest pack of Vivre cards just released in Japan. For those not familiar with the Vivre cards, they're basically a one-piece databook that is released in packs, revealing all new types of information about the manga. And yes, the Vivre cards are revised by Oda himself, which means that all of the information you see in this video is canon. I bought my own copy of the Vivre cards so I could translate them for you. So, let's get started with a full summary of my translations. Now, this pack mostly just serves as an opening to the second season of Vivre cards, so it just has cards for the Straw Hats in their Wano variants and a few extra cards we'll get into later, but for now let's focus on the tidbits of information given in these new Straw Hat cards. They're not much, but there is some interesting information here. First of all, something that I find very interesting is that according to one of the early Frankie sketches, it mentions that Onigashima was seemingly going to be called, at first, Ryugashima, or Dragon Island, as opposed to Onigashima, which means Oni Island. This, of course, is because Kaido himself is a dragon, but it's interesting to see that it was changed from Ryugashima to Onigashima. We also get a few comments about the power-ups the Straw Hats have received. For example, it mentions that Nami's lightning attacks are said to be substantially stronger with Zeus now than they ever were before, which, is quite obvious but is a bigger indication that Nami might be getting Zeus back again soon to fight against Ulti. It also mentions that one of the features of the raid suit is the acceleration device on the shoes, which allows Sanji to fight at much quicker speeds than ever before. Now, we've seen this in the manga as well, but it's interesting that it does specify that this allows Sanji to fight to a far higher level of speed, showing that one of the main strengths of the raid suit is not just its resistance, but also the ability to fight at much quicker speeds than before. However, at the same time, I also just want to mention this because I saw them floating around. There were two mistranslations that came from these cards which were not present in the original cards. The first being a statement that was floating around saying that with the raid suit, Sanji can defeat all of the Flying Six at the same time. This was completely made up, there is no mention of the Flying Six in this card, and the other one was the mention that Enma does not draw out Oden's Haki, but only Zoro's Haki. However, the card only mentions that Enma forcefully draws out one's Haki, which, yes, you could infer it's referring to Zoro's Haki and not Oden's Haki, but it's literally just what we are told in the manga, so this is adding nothing new or confirming anything in any way. Among the Straw Hats, however, we also get some interesting new information about Jinbei. For example, we get some pieces of information that we always got for other Straw Hats in previous SBSs, but we finally get here again, including some characteristics about Jinbei's profile. For example, it's described that Jinbei's color is ochre, which is a light brown color. We know that each of the Straw Hats is associated with a color, for example, Luffy's red, Zoro's green, and Nami's orange, but Jinbei is associated with a more brown ochre color. His sleep schedule, like that of the other Straw Hats, is revealed to be from 3 AM to 9 AM, and his least favorite food is revealed to be parfait. Sadly, it seems that Jinbei does not understand the true greatness of parfait. Also, well, this has been official and it really shouldn't be a doubt, but Jinbei's Vivre card confirms that he is the 10th official member of the crew, and even calls him the 9th person, which is a name that, if you might recall, is a pattern that has been seen as the title of several chapters, meaning that he is the 9th inclusion that Luffy has recruited. Furthermore, we also get some early sketches for the Straw Hats for their Wano and Onigashima design, with some comments that give us some new information about them. For example, Luffy was originally meant to wear a big Sandagasa hat, those traditional Japanese hats, which the card mentions made him look even more like the famous fictional swordsman Kogarashi Monjiro, a famous fictional character from a Japanese TV series that Oda might have based Luffy's Wano design on. Zoro is said to be pretty much the same apart from the top knot, since he always looked like a samurai, and Nami was also considered to be originally wearing a kimono much like Robin. Usopp was considered to once wear a thicker armor for his Onigashima design, and Sanji was also considered to wear a cape for his Onigashima design. Chopper was at one point considered in Wano to act as a feudal lord instead of a ninja, and it seems that he was also going to wear a different type of armor in his heavy point. Robin had a different design for her kimono and was also supposed to have a scene where she talked with Komurasaki, though it seems like that scene was scrapped. And of course, we also get designs for Frankie and Brook. Now, moving on to the new cards, which are actually the ones that contain the most new information, first of all we have O-Tama. Now, in terms of information for O-Tama, we get to find out that her birthday is on March 3rd. Now, this birthday would indicate that we actually get a point of reference for when the story is currently happening. After all, Luffy landed on Wano on her birthday, which would mean that the current moment in the story at Onigashima would be 2 weeks ahead in time from the moment her birthday happened. However, unfortunately, this birthday does conflict with some previous information, and this gets into a very complicated timeline discussion, which I won't completely go over here, and I'll include an image on screen with my thoughts on it in case you're interested and you want to read that, but regardless, let's get things moving and focus on other things. New information about O-Tama includes her height, which is 1.08 meters, her blood type being F, and her favorite food being oshiruko and apples, which makes sense because it's the oshiruko that she ate and the apple that Luffy gave her. However, we also get the name of her devil fruit, which was never revealed in the manga, being the Kibi Kibi no Mi, which allows her to take a piece of Kibidango from her cheek and give it to any wild beasts to make them subservient to her. Given her devil fruit's ability to tame smile users as well, the card refers to Tama with the epithet of the natural enemy of the beast pirates. There's also a cool detail that is finally clarified, where there was a plot hole that confused some of us readers, where Ace said that Tama was 5 years old in the flashback, despite that scene having been 4 years ago and Tama just turning 8 by the time that Luffy arrives at Wano, meaning that back then Tama should have been 4 years old, not 5. The viewer card reveals that Tama actually thought that Ace would consider her too young to let her join his crew, so she lied about her age and instead said that she wasn't 4, but 5, and not understanding that this didn't make much of a difference. This obviously is most likely just a slip-up that Oda made, but it's really cool that he managed to retcon it in a very clever way. And just like the Straw Hats, O-Tama also gets a series of early designs, showing that she went through a bunch of different designs because, according to Oda, she was meant to be an important character to the Wano story from the very start. Moving on, we have O-Kiku, and in terms of new information for O-Kiku, we get that her birthday is on September 9th, which is the Kiku festival in Japan. The flower she's themed after, so it makes sense. Her age is revealed to be 22 years old, which is fairly young considering how strong she is, and of course it's important to keep in mind this is not accounting for the time leap, which means that she was born 42 years ago, but biologically she is 22. Her blood type has been revealed to be XF, and furthermore, we get official confirmation that she has observation and armament haki, which makes sense being a red scabbard. O-Kiku's sex/gender section in her profile, I'm saying sex/gender because in Japanese there is no distinguishment between sex and gender in a grammatical way, just much like English does, so the word used in Japanese applies to both of these things, but basically it describes her as male because that is still her biological sex at the moment, but at the same time as a trans female, a trans woman. What is used here is kokoro wa onna, which means heart or mind, the soul, is female, which is a Japanese expression that specifically refers to what we call trans in English. This isn't technically anything new, considering that Kiku herself straight up mentioned being trans in the manga because she said the same thing, that her heart was female, which as I mentioned is a common Japanese idiom for being transsexual, but since many translations translated it literally and many people are not familiar with this idiom in Japanese, well, it was still pretty clear and understandable for most English readers. It gave some people the illusion that O-Kiku's gender was still unclear and unspecified. It's something very similar to what is happening now with Yamato, which, like I've said before, the Japanese version makes it incredibly clear that at the very least he wants to be called a man and referred to as a man, but since a lot of those details get easily lost in translation, it just creates more confusion. Regardless, it's nice that we get full canon confirmation that Kiku is trans, and hopefully even more clarification for Yamato will follow suit in his card one way or the other. It's also interesting that O-Kiku's Vivre card strictly states that her name is O-Kiku instead of Kikunojo. Kikunojo is her original full name in the story from what we learned, but instead this Vivre card suggests that her full official name at the present is just O-Kiku. It's possible this could be indicating that Kikunojo might be her dead name, the name that one abandons after transitioning, instead embracing O-Kiku as her new name, which makes sense because Kikunojo is a male name, while O-Kiku is a female name. Or alternatively, at the very least, it's just an older name that she'd rather not use as much, because Kinemon did call her Kikunojo once at Onigashima and she didn't seem particularly fazed by it, but this indicates that basically she'd just rather be called O-Kiku. The only ones who called her Kikunojo, aside from that instance I mentioned before, are the likes of Tsuru or Hiyori, who haven't seen her in a very long while, so it makes sense. Of course, to which extent this applies and why she'd rather be called O-Kiku is interpretative, but at the very least it appears that right now that is her official name. The video cards always show full official names. For example, Charlotte Lola was called Charlotte despite never being called as such in the story, but are also very keen on using the names characters want, such as for example having Sanji as just Sanji without Vinsmoke in the name despite that technically being his legal name, because that is how Sanji wants to be called. So whether it qualifies as her dead name or not, or it's just a name she'd rather not use anymore and she'd rather embrace this more feminine name, this shows that she wants to be officially called O-Kiku or just simply Kiku right now rather than Kikunojo. Furthermore, her Vivre card also describes her as a powerful samurai with the heart of a maiden. This is because samurai is a strictly male term in Japanese. Female warriors did exist but were referred to by a different name. But while Kiko still considers herself a samurai, which is why she uses the samurai-specific pronoun seisha, she still has the heart of a maiden, which as I mentioned is a Japanese term for being trans. Kiko's card also suggests, and I'm just going to read the actual quote translated literally, when it comes to Kinemon, who she'd known for a very long time, she seems to harbor special feelings beyond those of camaraderie. Which would suggest that Kiko at the very least has a crush on Kinemon, or maybe it's just a sense of respect. Kinemon did say that he was married and that he had no such relationship with O-Kiku, so it might just be one-sided, or like I said, it might just be a form of respect from O-Kiku, but still it's an interesting thing that is mentioned. Also, according to early sketches, O-Kiku might have at some point used the male pronoun boku rather than seisha, possibly to denote her samurai spirit, but the details of this choice aren't really explained here, so it's anyone's guess. The card also adds that while she went through different designs, as you can see, she always had a dignified expression from the start. And next, finally, our last of the new characters with new information, we get Shimotsuki, Yasuie, as well as Toko. Yasuie is revealed to have his birthday on April 2nd, he's revealed to be 71 years old, 1.55 meters high, blood type F, and his favorite food is said to be steamed rice. This is just a pun because steamed rice in Japanese is called hakumai, which is also the name of the region he ruled over. Toko herself is said to have her birthday on October 5th, her age is 6 years old, her height is 0.89 meters, her blood type is F, and her favorite food, adorably enough, is the o-soba that Sangoro served her. Furthermore, Toko is confirmed to not be Yasuie's biological daughter, but in fact someone that Yasuie adopted at a young age after she lost her parents. So while they were not related, it seems that Yasuie looked after her because she did not have anywhere else to go. We also get an early sketch for Yasuie where he seems to be wearing a mask of his older self on top of his head, which makes sense because Yasuie's appearance later on is based on the hyotoko, a traditional Japanese mask. However, the most important reveal of all, and what I think is possibly the most fascinating piece of information in this Vivre cards, is the fact that in the Devil Fruit section, Toko is said to be a smile user, which of course we know, but at the same time, Yasuie isn't. Yasuie is listed to have no devil fruit, no smile, which means that all of those smiles that Yasuie gave all this time were real. They were not caused by his smile devil fruit, but he was simply laughing and smiling for the sake of making those around him feel comfortable and at ease. The card specifically states that Yasuie encouraged the victims of smile with a big smile on his face. Personally, I feel like smiles tie into the larger themes of the story of smile and laughter, and this is something I would love to go into in its own video. To put it simply, I feel that smiles in the story of One Piece, as in the artificial devil fruits, serve more as a false form of smile and laughter that clashes with the more natural laughter that we've seen other characters display. It shows that no matter how much you try to make someone laugh, even forcing them to do so, the only way they will laugh naturally is by living a good and happy life. So in that regard, Yasuie brought real smile and laughter to the citizens of Ebisu. He showed them that no, you shouldn't let your laughter be controlled by this artificial fruit, but you should laugh from your own heart. He taught them to laugh beyond what they were being forced to do so on a biological level, and to show their real smiles. And in that regard, even up to his final moments, Yasui died with a smile on his face. And now we finally learned that that smile, that laughter, was not false. It was his real smile, his real laughter, which, like just many other characters throughout the story, has served as a smile that he carried until the moment of his death. Much like Luffy, Roger, or so many others, until his final moments, Yasuie laughed. But yes, beyond that very emotional piece of information, that is most of the new information in these cars. There are a few extra details that I didn't include in this video, which if you want to read, you can find in my full summary on the Library of Ohara, my site, which you can find the full translations in the description below. But beyond that, that's all for today. I hope you found some of this information interesting, and with that, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.